I'll tell you, my dad died when I was 1. So my dad died when he was 30. And so my whole life, I thought I was going to die when I was 30.
Hello and welcome to Grind, Hustle, Repeat, conversations around creativity and culture. I'm your host, Nicky Evans, and this is the show where we talk to creative entrepreneurs and discuss the ups and downs of their creative journeys, and hopefully by sharing, it provides guidance for others. Now, today's guest is a force within the British film industry. He first hit our screens in 2006 as Mooney in the cult classic KIDULTHOOD, and then again 2 years later in Adulthood. In 2013, he released his first feature film as a director, It's a Lot, starring the likes of Ellen Thomas, KOJO, and KADI. And then in 2017, he sold his second movie, The Intent, to Netflix for a worldwide release. And it's worth mentioning, it was funded, shot, and distributed completely independently. Pause. So, and it did so well that it paved the way for The Intent to the come up. And now his latest release, with long-time collaborating partner, Nicky Slim Ting WALKER, Against All Odds, premiered on a Channel U Takeover and can now be watched via LINKUP TV. My guest today is none other than Femi Oyeniran. Thank you so much for your time today, bro.
Thank you for having me, man. You almost got my surname right as well, but
don't lie.
You made it Nye, not Knee.
Oh,
But
it's
it's
like
fine.
my name as well.
Yeah, so it's Knee. It's Knee. But but
You
know
know,
what? It was fresh. You said it
peeve,
well.
you know? It's my pet peeve. I hate getting people's names wrong, you know?
No, it's fine. It's fine. You said it well as well. You said it confidently, and I respect it. And you pronounced it phonetically as well. And like that's what a lot of people struggle with. They just look at it and they're like, oh my gosh, too many vowels. I can't say it. Sorry. Bye.
Well,
Yeah.
I got it wrong once. I won't get it wrong again. So like, it really is like a pet peeve of mine, but it's cool. It's cool. It's
You
cool.
know what? It's so important to me because
It
like
is.
when I left Nigeria, I remember my grandfather saying to me like, don't change your surname, like whatever you do. He didn't really say much to me about moving to England, but the one thing he did say was like, whatever you do when you get to England, don't change your surname. And I knew that meant a lot to him.
Yeah.
And so because of that, it means a lot to me. And like, that was, I lived with my grandparents for like 3 years before the age of 10. So that's important to me that, that name shines bright and like people are educated about the meaning of that name and so on and so forth and like the substance behind it. So that's why really I don't really care. If it was just up to me, I don't really
think I know I feel that because so obviously my name is Russell Glenn Nee Odate Evans. And then when I started acting, first of all, then I dropped the Russell and I never really used the Glenn anyway. And it's always been Nee Odate Evans. And then people that knew me from before would be like, do I call you Russell? Do I call you Nee? And in the beginning, I used to be like, I don't mind. Like, I don't mind. They're both my names and what have you. But as I've got older in age, and then both, obviously, my sons have the Nee name as well. I understand the importance of your name and people getting your name right. So I hear that. But before we get into this, because there's so many things that I wanna talk to you about. I've got a little confession to make, right? So back in the day, when I was at uni, I slyly, not so slyly, wanted to be an MC, right? And I lived in a house with Melvin Adoom, Ricky Hayward Williams, some other people, and we were, as people were doing in the time, you're riding the mic and this, that, and the other. And I wrote some bars, right? These bars are like over 20 years old, but they are iconic. Yeah, you can call Melvin, Ricky up now. They can spit these bars for you, right? They're so iconic. Even my wife knows these bars, and even my children knows these bars, right? So when I saw you doing the promo for Against All Odds, and I saw the Serious 2020 challenge, I sat here like, yo, this is my moment. Yeah, like this is my moment. And so I got the beat. I rode the beat. I had the mini-me's in tow as well. I did a video, like shot the video on my phone, but I lost my bottle and I didn't send it. Yeah, but I'm gonna show it to you today so you can indulge me.
It. Is that the link?
You can watch it. So also note the part in the video where my kids completely lose interest. This is really about me like trying to relive my years. But
is that the link?
That's the link. Click the link now.
Oh wow, let me watch this.
Okay.
Why are you doing gunshot for? Don't do gunshot. Why are you blocking him? Alright. Said where? Coming to get ya. Hitting you hard with this lyrical lecture. Yes, you can bet your bottom dollar. Premier squad, make you holler. Freak flex, big up the chest. Pass the mic and I'll tell them who's next as we proceed to give you what you need. And if you don't know, it's the Premier League. I said,
Oh my, kitty kitty gosh, tell me now if you feel the rush. So you know that what they can rush. Prince God's not stopping us.
DJ.
Attack a rush, but it makes them legs they keep fooling us.
True.
Sound so marvelous.
Girl.
Look so fabulous.
Roll with the beat now, roll with the flavor. If you like the sound, then tell your neighbor. To the mic, I'm no stranger. To the MCs, I bring you danger. I see you.
Watching me.
I see you.
Clapping me.
Tell me, girl, what's it gonna be? Looking for a dance or a little romance? Come over here and take a chest with the guava chair, with the guava chair. Come over here and take a chest with the guava chair, with the guava chair. Yo, I want to be.
I want to be.
I want to be. I want to be.
I want to be.
I want to be an MC. If you're looking for one to pick me, if you're trying to check my CV, all I want to do is get you lively. My girl thinks I'm crazy. All I want to be is an MC. Ever since I was the age of 3, all I want to be, yo, the greatest there is, the greatest there was, the greatest there ever shall be. Like Creed and the DT, like Kai and the Munchie, like Sparks and the PSG. All I want to be is an MC.
Ever since I was age 3, all I want to be.
That's hard. You should have entered it. It would have won.
There you go. I thought I'd share that with you.
You should have entered it. It would have so won. That's so hard. It's so hard, bro.
Never mind.
I
Next
love
time.
that you got the kids. They need a bars as well. Come on.
You know what? It's so funny because I think what had happened was an old video had surfaced of me doing it, and then they were like, "What's that?" And then they just started learning it, and I was just like, "Look at that! Like this is like." I wrote these lyrics like 20 years ago, but yeah, I think what I love about the whole promotion that around Against All Odds, because I saw you posted a video of you spitting some bars in the street back in the day as well. And I love what you did with the marketing around this film, and I love the way in general that you approach filmmaking in terms of like emulating successful American genres that we've all grown up on. And so when I was even watching Against All Odds, and at the start I saw, you know, when you see like the presenting partners, and I saw Boohoo Man in there as well. So I was interested, like, how did that come around?
So Nicky's got a friend who is good friends with the guys that run Boohoo, and like Nicky spoke to them, and they basically wanted to get behind me and Nicky as filmmakers. So that was what that was. So it was like, you know, whatever we do, they'll support us, like, you know, for as long as we want them to, really. Like,
that's amazing.
And that's what our arrangement with Boohoo is, and that's where that, obviously, in terms of like who presented it, like that was the next project that we had coming out after we had that conversation with the team at Boohoo. So like we went up there, we, like, you know, develop a nice bond with the guys up there. They're good guys, man, and yeah, that's how we connected with them. Basically, was through actually Napa, who's an MC. Actually, he's good friends with those guys up there.
Napa from back in the day.
Yeah.
Because yeah. Okay. I love that. You see, I feel like you really understand culture, yeah, and then you also then are able to use that in a way to kind of push the culture forward. I mean, even at the beginning when I was saying all of the things that you did, I'd even touch on like Cut the Chat and all of the things that you've done with that, going on tour, the live shows at Roundhouse and so on and so forth. But I want to go back to the beginning of your filmmaking career when you did It's a Lot. Now, I've heard you talk about how that was a low point for you. Now, for many, that would have perhaps been a reason to be like, yo, I'm going to pack this in. Because obviously I know you've got a degree in law. So, you've got that background. You could have easily been like, bun that, I'm going to do this.
Yeah.
What made you
stubborn? I'm stubborn. And I've got conviction, and if I've got conviction that something's gonna work, I follow my instinct and I push. And I've got supportive people in my life, i.e. my mother, i.e. my sister, i.e. my wife, i.e. now even my kids, who, like, you know, sort of support me and are behind me. And so, and then also I've got a really good business partner, Nicky, who's just as stubborn as me. And so in that, and also, like, that's where that comes from, is that, you know, just never say die spirit, and also seeing that there is a gap, and seeing that being led by culture is very important to us. That's our business, right? Mine and Nicky's business model is not magic. It's just like, actually, I don't make stuff. We made this a lot because the culture said they wanted this a lot. By the time It's a Lot came out, the culture didn't need it anymore, right? We made the intent because we saw that that was the next trend, that was the next wave. Like, you know, that we made the intent when I think like that Tiny Temper, Tinchy Strider, N-Dubs wave was coming to an end. And so what happens culturally, I was talking to Nicky about this yesterday, what happens culturally in the UK is that it goes super commercial, then it goes super street.
Right.
Every time something goes super commercial and then it goes street again, it goes commercial. It's this wave that happens in the UK. That is, and I can start, you know, if you go back to like, so what happened with old school garage, right? It was super commercial. I'll bring you flowers, make your body groove, iron upper, all those tunes, super commercial, champagne, colorful clothes, like bars. And then So Solid came out, super street. Same thing, but super street. And then that So Solid thing, that kind of went into disappeared. And then when that disappeared, it was like a few years of like nothing was really happening. So it was like Dizzy Rascal 1 year, Miss Dynamite 1 year, Miss Dynamite, then Dizzy, then in terms of black culture, black British music culture, I'm talking about. Obviously there were loads happening, but as that So Solid thing happened, like, you know, grime started to happen off the back of that, but underground, not mainstream, right? And then it took a while for that grime to push to the top. Like, in fact, I'd argue that, you know, grime as a whole movement, like loads of people never really had that moment early on. It just remained underground, and like, you know, the commercial version of it then came to the fore. Do you get what I'm saying? And then and that was the expression that expression came through like your Tinies, your Tinchies, your early Chip, like the commercial version. Your the Brat Pack. That's what they called them, the Brat Pack.
Oh, really? I didn't even know that.
Yeah, so they call them the Brat Pack.
Wow.
So
Okay.
it was Tiny, N-Dubs, Tinchy, not Jesse J. They were like the Brat Pack.
Okay.
Right? And so when that was coming to an end, because that super commercial music, we saw that, you know, the second coming of Skepta, you know, like the street version, the shutdown version, we could see that trend happening. We could see that Stormzy trend happening. We could see things were getting a little bit more street again. And that was when, like, you know, we decided, you know, we needed to make a film like The Intent, because it was like it was a visual complement to what was happening within the music and what the kids were getting down with. Like, and then again, there was pushback and people saying, no, why are you not making this? So like, actually, we've always got like, literally, I'm not joking, I've always got 10 projects. Like at any given time, I've got 10 projects that I'm focused on in one way or the other. Like, that I'm pushing forward. And I think it's always been the cap. It's always 10 projects, right? And so we're like, oh, you know, let's just do Against All Odds, because we know like the culture needs that. And luckily for us, it was lockdown and there was more of a need of nostalgia in everyone, and everyone wanted to experience that feel good thing inside of them. And so that was that Against All Odds has been, to be fair, it's been in the work since 2019.
Okay.
It was our stopgap project between The Intent 2 and whatever we did next. And because of lockdown, we've not been able to do anything else feature film wise in the meantime.
See, I think when I watched Against All Odds, one of the things that really struck out to me, like obviously you got the what I would class as like the iconic intro scene. Like even when it first came on, I was like, "Right, there's Bruiser," and it just kind of, the nostalgia hit me. And then in one of the early scenes, the lead, when he's in his bed, and you know that little MIDI system, like I saw that and I was just like, right. And so all of that nostalgia was brewing. And as I was watching the whole thing, I was like, what you guys have done is you have really documented like an era that is so like integral to a lot of us and it has been so influential to popular culture. Even the fact of like Jammer having the blue plaque on its house, and so when you started out, did you have that of like, did you realize actually this is really important, like we need
of course we were always, remember Nicky was there. Nicky was one of the pioneers.
Yes, of course. Yeah.
So like, you know, my business partner Nicky, he's like, I used to tape him on pirate radio. Like I was that kid in that bedroom with my MIDI system listening to him. So Nicky was there, and so it was important. Like we knew what we were doing. Like that, it's always very intentional.
Yeah.
Like, every time we do a project, it's very intentional, and we know that the feeling you get when you watch it, we knew you were gonna get that feeling.
Yeah.
It was engineered from the start, and that's what I mean about, at the moment our approach is to be led by the culture, and like war service to Black British culture at the moment. That's where our career is at. Obviously, we've got global ambitions. Like our next film is going to be in the States. We've got a film in the States, but our next film is going to be in Nigeria, the Caribbean. We're shooting our next film actually is kind of the same space. We've got a film called Napa that we're shooting in Napa about. It's like In-Betweeners meets what's that film? I can't remember. In-Betweeners, but with, you know, sort of street element, like, you know, people from the ends going to Napa back in the day. So like Against All Odds was kind of a alley hoop.
Yeah.
That's what's funny. Like, because we were just like warming everyone's appetite for this other thing that was to come. That was the rationale between, but that's why we did it.
See, it's funny because I must admit, I didn't pay attention in the beginning, right? And so as I'm watching it, and then I realized, oh, this is a short film. So when it ended, I was like, how are you ending there? So it was like, okay, now what's next?
We did a sneaky marketing thing where we called it a movie when it was really a short film. It was just a sneaky marketing thing. And that was just us being rude to everyone.
Okay, so at the end of Against All Odds, when the credits are rolling, right at the end it says copyright, It's a Lot. Is that like you naming the company there?
That's mine and Nicky's business. That's our business.
So okay, so you, from the first time you did It's a Lot, and then
but that's not even It's a Lot. Wasn't like we co-produced that, but we didn't own that film. Like in terms of, like, we didn't raise the money. We raised the money, but it went through another company, and we weren't owners of that company.
Gotcha.
And like, but we had It's a Lot Limited that we were gonna use to make that film.
Yeah.
And so we just kept that company and just kept it as our company since.
Gotcha.
And so that's mine and Nicky's company. But then outside of that, we're gonna like set up a trading company, like, you know, off that, where soon we're gonna do a whole website and stuff. Like we've just been very lazy, like, in getting that together. Because I feel like now we need an online home, like an online hub where people can go to consume our content and to get what we're up to. And we've been kind of resistant to do that until we had enough content. So like, don't you hate those websites where like, oh yeah, we're a big production company, but actually we've done nothing. Now we've got like more than enough content. Like, you know, we've got music videos, we've got short films, we've got feature films, we've got loads, we've got TV series, we've got loads that, you know, can make that website, that home online, like, you know, exciting for people to go on.
Cool. So I mentioned earlier on about how you have your law degree. How did the transition happen from law to acting to actually this is what I'm going to do? Like, obviously coming from West African background, for me, I've always wanted to get into acting and film, but it just was a no-go from my parents. They were like, you have to do something more academic, and I went down the computing route. Was it similar for you, or was the decisions all yours to make?
It's weird because I didn't do law then acting. It was all at the same time.
Okay.
So when I was 17, I went to an open audition at my college for film KIDULTHOOD, because Noel Clarke wanted to audition kids from his old college that he'd been to 10 years before. He's 10 years on me. He's 10 years older than me. So like, he auditioned. I was one of the kids that he discovered at that college. And then from there, KIDULTHOOD didn't come out for 18 months after I made it. But I was already I'm gonna go to uni because I was quite academic. I was quite A student type kid, right? And so then I went to uni and did my law degree at London School of Economics. At the end of my first year, KIDULTHOOD comes out. And then like I was doing bits of acting. I did a play whilst I was at uni. I was doing bits and bobs of things whilst I was at uni, but generally speaking, I was always doing it all at the same time. And then when I finished uni, I remember my friend Alex, who you know as well, was like one of my best friends from uni. Like, you know, it's one of my closest friends, like still, like, you know, in the world. And like he's always like one of my biggest cheerleaders. He basically said, oh, why don't you like do acting full time? Like, when are you ever gonna get the opportunity to do it? And then I had a meeting with my personal tutor, and I was telling her I was into acting. I remember her telling me this story of she's from Belgium, and the fact that when she was a kid, she had a choice between doing her final law exam and being in the biggest Belgian soap, and she chose to do a law career. And she looked so sad, and when she was telling me this story, and so I decided actually I'm gonna do this acting thing. And I had an agent anyway. I was at one of the top agencies in the country at the time. And so I went into acting, and then for a year, I didn't get that much work. It was really frustrating. And then same Alex was working at Redbridge Council, and they were giving out funding for people to go and make short films. And he was like, Femi, you should apply. You always keep talking about making a short film. And so then I applied, but then I applied late. But then Alex spoke to the woman, and then she got me in for an interview, and then I got the funding to make the short film. And then, yeah, I just built from there. And then I started doing this thing called Cut the Chat, because the online space was jumping off. I was like, oh, let me shoot this online show for YouTube. And to be fair, we didn't carry it on online, and we should have, because it was like Breakfast Club before Breakfast Club.
Absolutely.
Because at the time, it was when YouTube, you couldn't have longer than 10-minute videos. This is how early we were on this thing.
I remember that.
You couldn't have longer than 10-minute videos. And so for us, we would sit down with influential people, talk to them for an hour, almost like Breakfast Club, and then edit it down to 10 minutes, which was harsh. And then by the time YouTube allowed for longer videos, we'd taken it off YouTube and put it as a podcast. But we started this, I'll be honest, it was like literally Breakfast Club before Breakfast Club. It was Not For The Radio before Not For The Radio. It was what's the other thing? The shop, LeBron James's thing.
Yes,
it was that before we had that. And but we turned it into a podcast, which is cool. But I still do that every Tuesday. I still do that.
So so the show's still going out.
Cut the Chat exists. Like Cut the Chat is on YouTube. It's like thriving. We've got at least 2,000 to 3,000 people listening every week. Like, you know, it's I love the podcast. Through the project, I've been able to like develop a really close relationship with Lee, Little Man, the comedian, Damon, who's a barber, and Ace. Like, they're like three of my closest friends.
I think when you watch you guys, you can see the chemistry and the bonding immediately.
I mean, we didn't even we weren't really that close before, but like, you know when you just grow together and you're you know, when you like, there's something about speaking to 3 people every week. And that's what, since we turned it into a podcast, we speak every week, every single week, or like talking to each other. So it's been a really good bonding exercise. And you go through, like, you know, Victor, our friend, died, and like you go through all these moments that solidify your relationship and bring you even closer together.
You mentioned Victor. I never knew Victor, but obviously from a distance, I saw the work that he was doing, and like just kind of like, oh, rah, moves. And that was a weird one, because it's like somebody so young passing away just so out of the blue, I guess. Like, how did that kind of change you, I guess, your outlook on life, like things like that? I mean,
I'll tell you, my dad died when I was 1. So my dad died when he was 30. And so my whole life, I thought I was going to die when I was 30, when I turned 30. So my whole life, like, I wasn't scared or crying about it. I just, in my head, I thought, yeah, that's my time limit. And then I went past 30 and I was happy, and I thought, oh yeah, I'm going to live forever. And then Victor died when he was 33. And can't remember what age I was then. Oh no, I was 31 and Victor died when he was 33. And at that moment, I was like, oh my gosh, it's back to that urgency. I've always lived my life with a sense of urgency. It's strange. Like there's like, there's an urgency to the way I live my life.
Yeah.
Right?
That's important.
Yeah. And so Victor dying obviously I still like, you know, sometimes I catch moments where I'm like, rah, no more Victor. I remember that for months, that's what I was saying to my head, like, rah, no more Victor. Like, how could that even be a thing? Like, the fact that there's no more Victor. And then I was angry at, you know, sort of the industry for not allowing Victor to, like, do some of the stuff that he wanted to do.
Yeah.
I was angry at, like, you know, like, just angry. I was just angry. And then eventually, like, you know, over time, I've just accepted that Victor was meant to exist for that moment and to achieve those things that he achieved. And he's such an icon in like what he was able to achieve. He was like, remember, he didn't even reach the heights of what he was due to get to yet. And like people, he was still an icon to be able to have such impact on people. And so for me, that was hard because again, Victor was my business partner. So I speak to Nicky every day. So I've spoken to Nicky several times, twice already today on the phone. I used to speak to Victor several times in a day as well. And that was hard. Like, you know, for months I would go to call Victor to tell him an idea. So it was like, I'll tell him an idea or like I'll be sharing something, but I couldn't because he wasn't there anymore. So that was really difficult. But what it has done for me is that from then I was just like, you know, we have to power up. We have to work harder. We have to work on multiple projects. We have to like be aggressive. And like, that's what it's done. Like since Victor died, I think I've been more aggressive in business and more aggressive in trying to achieve my dreams and more aggressive in getting things done because it was a reminder that, you know, I could die tomorrow.
I want to like something that you said about when your dad passed away and you having this thing of dying at the same age that your dad died. Like, so my dad died when I was in my final year of uni. I was 21. He was 54 when he passed away. And I don't necessarily have the same thing of thinking that I'm gonna die when I get to 54, but it's always there in the back of my mind. Like, so I turned 40 this year. And so, wow, okay, I've only got 14 years, not 14 years left, but 14 years. And I always feel like that year is gonna be a funny year. And one of the things that has plagued me, I guess, is procrastination. So when you were saying the thing about living with a sense of urgency, I think dealing with like my dad's passing, it kind of did the opposite to me. And I just took slowly but surely, I started distancing myself with everything, of this idea of like, but it could just all just end. It could all just end. And it really took me a while to get to a space. So even doing this, and there's other projects that I've got, it took me a while to get back into that space of you have to live with urgency. And especially every time you do hear of somebody passing, that actually we're all here and we've all got work to do. So, but yeah, thank you for sharing that, man.
Yeah, it's just the truth. Like it's like for me, I just feel like living is a privilege, and like you just have to make the most of it. So it's a privilege. Even doing what I do, I look at as a privilege. Like, you know, like I'm me and Nicky, we are self-made. We're not backed by anyone. We don't have family in film, and we're thriving, and we've been able to have the impact that we've had on film, in film, and like we've been able to have the impact in married film with the music industry and all of that stuff. It's like it's a massive privilege, man. There's nothing special about us. There's no reason why we deserve it. So like we thank God. We thank people for giving us the opportunity to do those things. So for me, I wouldn't I don't take these things lightly.
How do you see the film industry in this country? I'll tell you where I'm coming from. So years ago, I was having a conversation with a friend of mine, and we were talking about the rate in which the Nigerian film industry puts out content compared to the Black British film industry. And then when you think about, when you compare that with access to technology and everything that you need in order to do it, it's like we couldn't understand why on this level in our culture we're not putting out content at that rate. But then also a very big thing is money, actually being paid for your creativity, being paid for your art. And I think platforms, well, the internet in general, but platforms like Spotify and Tidal have slightly changed that for musicians. What do you think is going to be the moment to make filmmaking more financially rewarding and viable for Black British creatives?
I think there's a lot of layers. So the funding models, film's not cheap. To make a good film is not cheap, right? The Nigerian films, they're able to knock out so much because the films are cheap. They make cheap films, right? So they can knock out loads of films. Like the average budget is like 10 grand, 10 to 30 grand. That's like people's fees to be in films in England, not like a big actor, like a sort of up and coming to like middling actor gets paid about that kind of money, right? Maybe. So film is not cheap to make, so you need proper funding to do it. That's one of the reasons I like to make good quality films. And then people are making loads of content. It's just online, it's on YouTube. Because again, the films are either really cheap or they've got no access to distribution, so they put it on YouTube. And then there's like distribution is overwhelmingly white, so there's no distribution for Black content in the UK. There's no distributor that focuses on picking up Black British content and giving it a platform. And so that's it. So like Black people can't get money. It's not like Black people don't have ideas. Like I meet Black content makers with ideas all the time. Black British people don't have the money or the luxury always to make films. And then Black British people have no influence over distribution or have no distributors.
How do we change that?
Yeah, so me and Nicky are hopefully setting up a distribution company. And then in terms of funding, there's nothing I can do about that necessarily. Like, you know, we just figure out new funding models. That's why we're partnering up with the music industry so much. That's why we partnered up with brands for stuff. That's why we partnered up with, like, because film money is not necessarily easy to get, and also film money, there aren't that many Black people, Black things getting funded. And I can't control that. I can't talk about the BFI and Channel 4 and BBC. I'm not all up in there. I don't really talk to them people. And so I'm not all up in there. So I can't talk about that. I can't speak on what I don't know and what I'm not involved in. What I can speak on is like, you know, me and Nicky have figured out innovative ways to raise financing to make our projects. And that's what we're going to continue doing. And like where others see obstacles, we see opportunity and try to fashion out opportunities for ourselves. But the massive, massive, massive gap in the market is actually there is no Black distribution company, and there are hardly any Black people at any of the distribution companies that exist in the UK.
And so for people that might be watching, listening, outline the importance of a distribution company.
A distribution company is like a record label. It's that simple. It's like, you know, in the same way that a record label picks up an artist and elevates them, that's what a distribution company does. But whereas like in music, there's a lot of infrastructure that challenges the major record label infrastructure. So like you can put out music on Spotify on your independently. In film, it's still very much controlled by the major companies. And so it's difficult to access cinemas, to access digital platforms, to access all of these things without being on like a pre-approved list. And also it's harder to do film independently. I mean, me and Nicky have done it. You can do it if you partner up with the right people. However, it's difficult to be independent in film and make money.
You talk about the record label, the models, and, you know, not having access to the cinemas in terms of distribution and stuff. So this year, obviously things have changed. Nobody's been out, everybody's at home. Is that an opportunity to change the system and buck the trend and and within that find a space where we can create, but then also get paid for creating, like in the same way it works with on the music side of things. Because obviously the internet has been able to kind of change the game for musicians, and I'm just wondering if there is that possibility when it comes to distribution, if that can happen for filmmaking.
I mean, like, if it wasn't for Netflix, me and Nikki wouldn't even be where we are now. So it's not like we've not had access. And also, you can get access to the cinema. I'm just talking about like doing it en masse. Like, you know, the intent was completely distributed independently. The intent was in the cinema. It was on all digital platforms, and then we sold it to Netflix globally. So you can do it. It's just like what I'm talking about is that there's no black people in distribution. There's no black people that understand how to do it. Like, I know how to do it because we couldn't get a distribution deal, so we decided to do it ourselves, and like God blessed us and we were able to do it successfully. And so for me, it's not like you can't do it. It's just like, actually, it's easier if filmmakers are filmmakers and they don't have to be distributors as well. Like, do you know what I mean? And so for us, it's like, you know, let's create a home where we could do that for you. Like, and like, you know, we could do that for other people and allow other people that platform. And also in terms of like COVID hasn't changed how films are consumed. All it's done is like meant that people are watching Netflix more. But when the cinemas open back up, people will just go to the cinemas. Like, it's not like cinemas are gone. Like, when they open back up, people will be there because it's something to do. I realized actually through COVID the importance of something to do. Like, sometimes you're just in your house and you want something to do.
But surely there's going to be a shift culturally, like in terms of once you get, so for example, I was saying to the wife the other day that the idea of us wearing masks in places is now never going to go away. It's always going to be a thing. Like, I don't envision a time where you can now go on a plane and not wear a mask. So not as extreme as that, but if we now know that we can sit at home and watch Netflix and Amazon Prime, and the companies know that people are happy to have a consumer release at home, then that means the amount of people going to cinemas, although yes, we've missed going out and interacting, surely it's gonna take a hit.
Remember, Netflix, Amazon, all those platforms existed before COVID. And it's still, people are always like saying cinemas are gonna die. Cinemas are not gonna die. What's gonna happen with cinemas is that you're gonna have like less smaller films, like the films I currently make. And you know, over time you're gonna get bigger and bigger films. But that's it. Cinemas are not gonna die though. I don't think so. I don't agree. Just because again, the importance. Why are we sad about lockdown then? We can get food delivered to our house. We can watch films in our house. We can do whatever we want in our house. We can. So why are we sad? Why do we care? Because humans like interacting. Humans like going out. We like interacting with other people. We like stepping out of our home. Like, you know. And so for me, I believe that, I don't know if cinemas will change. There probably will be less cinemas, but I don't think they're going to go away. I feel like we might lose a quarter to a third of the cinemas, like, you know, and like box office takes might go down by a quarter to a third, but I don't think they're going to disappear completely because people always looking for something to do. And like I said, prior to COVID, Netflix, Amazon, all these platforms existed with the same volume of content. And so I just feel like, you know, like theater, cinema, they serve a purpose. And that's why people still go.
Yeah. Okay. What has
but
been
I do
your
feel like, you know,
defining
there are
moment
opportunities.
so far?
The biggest opportunity
Within your career?
I think I've had two. I've had kidulthood.
Go on.
Because that changed my life. I met that I wasn't a lawyer. Because I was always going to be a lawyer. That was like the job I was going to do. And then I've had the intent, because that changed my life as a creative, and that was the birth of me as a creative force and someone that was to be respected as a filmmaker and someone that was here to shift culture through the medium of film. So like, you know, for me, I would say like kidulthood and the intent completely have defined my work life so far.
What, during the course of your career, what's the best advice you've been given?
But someone once said to me, find a need and serve it. So we've been talking about the lack of black distribution or black distributors. And now, like I said to you, me and Nicky are in the process of answering that need. The intent, there's a gap in the market. The loved it so much. Like, do you get what I'm saying? And also it was a cultural moment. And it was more the Against All Odds was more of a cultural play than a money play. It was a passion project.
Yeah.
It was more about shifting culture and making that statement about the culture and rather than it being a money thing. Because it's on YouTube, it's for free, it's on LINKUP TV. I don't make money from that. Like, we created that just for the culture. You know, like people say for the culture all the time, but like literally that we did that for the culture.
No, and it's evident, it's apparent when you watch it. So my last question to you, and I ask everybody this, what advice would you give to Femi at 16?
Femi at 16 was starting college, say. I think I would say to me, like, you know, just trust God, like, for direction in your life, because at the time, everything I do now, I didn't think I was gonna do at 16.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know, like, people are like, oh yeah, I wanted to be a filmmaker all my life. No, I didn't. I didn't want to be a filmmaker all my life.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't. Like, so Femi at 16 didn't want to be a filmmaker. Femi at 16 didn't even necessarily think he could be an actor. I was interested in acting, but I didn't think I could be an actor. I didn't see it as a viable career. So I think as a 16-year-old, I was in a good place. So like I wouldn't even have changed it. It sounds bizarre, like most people, like, you know,
no,
I wouldn't have changed it. I think again, I really, like, I was on track, because remember I did kidulthood when I was 17.
Yeah.
You know, so it was like,
I guess,
do you know what I mean? I wasn't like, decisions I made when I was 16 still shaped my life now.
Yeah.
Imagine that. The first time I auditioned for kidulthood was when I was 16. Because kidulthood, I auditioned when I was 16. They didn't get the money, the funding to make the film. And then I had to audition again when I was 17, right? So at 16, I auditioned for kidulthood. That's one of the pivotal moments in my career, still till today, right? So, you know, that 16-year-old was doing well, like, you know, and then even at the same time, like, you know, at 16, I did really well at my exams, like at my A level, my GCSEs and my A level. So, like, you know, I was on track as a 16-year-old. And like, I suppose that one thing that happened to me when I was 16 was, for a little while, I wasn't really, like, my friends at school, I kind of fell out with them. And I think that was a gift. That was a blessing, because it meant I was able to, like, focus in on what I was doing at the time. So like, if I were to go back, I wouldn't change that. But at the time I was like resentful towards my friends, like, but I wouldn't even change that till today, because, like, you know, that meant that I was able to not be out chilling in the ends with my friends. That meant I was like, I had a girlfriend at the time, I was either with my girlfriend or I was at home. And so I wasn't chilling with my boys that much. And that really helped me, because it meant I was just like, I remember, like, my brethren were out the night before exams. I was thinking, these are mad. And so at 16, I was on point. I was on point, because I was in a library. I was doing the hours needed to get A's and A stars in my GCSEs. Like, I went to the library. I remember there was a kid, from the year above me that came to my school. Yeah, this shaped my life, actually. I don't remember the guy's name, but it shaped my life. I remember this kid came to my school, right? And to my assembly, and gave a speech about how well he did at his GCSE. Right now, teachers still do stuff like this, yeah? And they think it doesn't affect people, but genuinely, it had a huge impact on me. This kid went on stage and said, like, I did my GCSEs last year, I got A's, blah, 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 right? And he said he didn't watch TV when he was 16, because he was revising for his GCSEs. So the hours after school, he didn't watch TV. so this kid said he didn't watch TV, right, after school. But like my life was defined by watching TV after school. Obviously, I'm not of the Netflix generation. I'm gonna sound really old now. After school, right, they had children's programming from 3:30 till 5:30, and then they had Neighbours before the news, and then you watch the news with your family, and then after that, then they might watch the local news for another half an hour. Then at 7 o'clock, it's Emmerdale. Then at 7:30, might be Coronation Street. Then at 8 o'clock, it's EastEnders. And like, you know, and then you might carry on watching TV after that. This shaped my life. This anchored my life at the time. And then I remember like this kid saying he never watched TV. And you know what? I stopped watching TV in my GCSE year from like 5 o'clock. From like straight after school. No, from straight after school till the library closed. And I think it might close at 7:30 or 8. So that's what I did in my GCSE year. Like, but my brethren were just chilling. And so, like, you know, I didn't get good grades by accident. I actually worked for it. And I was training myself to work hard in the library and to do stuff like that from a young age. Do you know what I mean? So, like, and so when people like see me, I'm a writer, like, or like I'm a producer, like, you know, and I do all of these things. I've had discipline from a young age to be able to sit down for hours and hours and get the job done. Like, I'm a get the job done person. And like, actually, that kid coming to my school and saying, he never watched TV when he was like for his GCSE year. It confused me. I didn't think it was possible.
You know what? I'm gonna wrap this up, but I'm gonna say something quickly, because what you said about the child coming to your school and sharing, that was one of the reasons why I wanted to do this and speak to people like you and just put that information out there, because I think it's so important just to share these things, because you don't know who you're touching. In the same way, you don't even know this guy's name, but he shaped he shaped your life and he's out there. Do you know what I mean? So that was one of the reasons why I wanted to do this. But I'm going to wrap up here. We're going to have to do this again because it's like the gremlins have properly come at me today. But thank you very much for your patience.
Blessings, King. Good to see you.